Hello, I am AARP Senior Vice President Bill Walsh, and I'd like to welcome you to this important conversation about how AARP is fighting to protect Social Security right now. Throughout the program, we'll hear from leading experts who will share their insights and answer your questions live. Before we begin, if you'd like to hear this telephone town hall in Spanish, press *0 on your telephone keypad now.
Si usted desea escuchar en español, presione asterisco y 0 en su teléfono ahora.
AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 65 years. Through events like this, AARP continues to provide information and resources to help older adults and those caring for them. As Social Security approaches an important milestone, its 90th anniversary, some recent developments have left many older adults concerned. Those concerns have ranged from customer service issues at the agency to the future of the program itself. To help understand what's happening and what's in store for Social Security, we'll speak with leading experts today who will share their insights and will take your questions live. For those of you joining us on the phone, if you'd like to ask a question, press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time to be connected with an AARP staff member who will note your name and question and place you in the queue to ask that question live. If you're joining on Facebook or YouTube, you can post your question in the comments section. Hello, if you're just joining, I'm Bill Walsh with AARP, and I want to welcome you to this important discussion about Social Security. To ask your question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad at any time, or drop your comments in the question section on Facebook or YouTube. Now I'd like to welcome our special guests today. First is Steve Richardson. Steve is a retired Regional Communications Director for the Social Security Administration. For more than 38 years, Steve helped people maximize their Social Security payments. Welcome, Steve.
Pleasure to be here with you, Bill.
All right, we're delighted to have you. I'd also like to welcome to the program John Hishta. John is the Senior Vice President at AARP for campaigns. He ensures that your voices are heard on important issues such as Social Security and Medicare. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
All right. And finally, Bill Sweeney. Bill is the Senior Vice President at AARP. He leads advocacy efforts benefiting older adults, including efforts to improve resources for caregivers and lower prescription drug prices. Bill, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much. Good to be here.
All right. Great to have all of you. Let's get right to it. Let's begin by sorting out recent Social Security changes. It can be confusing since some recent changes have been postponed, revised, or withdrawn. Bill, let's start with you. What are the changes and when are they effective?
Well, look, there have been a lot of changes at Social Security, including, I think, sort of the biggest one, which has been a reduction in the staff at Social Security by about 7,000 people. Social Security was already at a 50-year low in terms of staffing prior to this announcement, and they've been dealing with some pretty significant customer service issues to boot. So we're really tracking that closely, making sure that as they go through that process, they're prioritizing customer service, moving people into those jobs, and providing good service to folks. In addition, on March 18th, Social Security announced and then retracted about a couple of weeks later a change to the way individuals would have to verify their identity when claiming benefits. And, you know, this was something that the minute we heard about it, we thought, oh my gosh, this is going to really impact our members and older adults all over the country. This is going to make it really challenging for people, especially those in rural America, people with disabilities or transportation challenges, to be able to get to a field office to prove who they were. And we heard from our team in Alaska, for example, right? In Alaska, people would have to get on a plane to go and prove their identity to get the Social Security benefits they've earned. Mm-hmm. So we leapt into action on this. We generated really just millions of emails and phone calls into Congress, into the voices of Americans all over the country on this. And I just got to say, it was tremendous to see the Social Security Administration backtracked on that policy by April 11th, announced that they were no longer going to require those onerous verification procedures. And it just goes to show the power of us raising our voices and making sure that when we do raise our voices, that folks are listening in our federal government.
Well, that's great news. Maybe you can talk a little bit about what AARP has done to ensure Americans get the answers they need and receive their payments.
Well, look, improving customer service at Social Security has been a priority for us for a long time now. We work in a lot of different ways to do that. One of the things that I don't think most people realize is that Congress actually restricts how much money Social Security can spend on customer service every year. And so we have been urging Congress to lift those caps so that Social Security can spend the money you've paid in to Social Security for customer service, make sure that they can spend it in a way that is reasonable and can make sure that there are enough staff who are trained to answer your calls when you need them. There are people at the field offices when you need to go in for help. And so we've been working on that for a really long time, both urging Congress to give Social Security the money it needs, but also to hold Social Security accountable for those customer service metrics, making sure that those phone calls are getting answered on time and making sure that people are getting the help they need. But right now what we're seeing, it's shocking, wait times of more than 2 hours sometimes for people to get a call back. About half of the calls or more are being dropped. No one's even answering the phone. And so these sorts of things are really unacceptable to us, to our members. And so we've been really pressuring Congress hard, pressuring the agency hard to improve those customer service metrics.
All right. Well, let me take a step back. Earlier this year, a National Academy of Social Insurance public poll funded partially by AARP found that Americans, regardless of political affiliation, income, education, or generation, were unified in support of Social Security and are broadly opposed to reductions. Are their voices being heard?
Well, look, the polling confirms what we've always known, which is that Americans overwhelmingly support Social Security, and we oppose any cuts to benefits or to services that people rely on. AARP is working really hard to make sure that lawmakers and policymakers on Capitol Hill understand how important Social Security is. It's not just unpopular, these changes, it's unacceptable. If you have paid into Social Security your whole life, you deserve to get the benefits that you've earned, and you deserve to get them when you've earned them. You deserve to get your questions answered properly, correctly on the first try, and you shouldn't have to wait on hold for hours to talk to somebody to get the help you need. So it's why we've been able to score these victories with Social Security to improve customer service. The polling that we do is really helpful, but also the voices, frankly, of our members, the voices of older adults all over the country speaking out is absolutely critical to making sure that our policymakers listen to us on these issues.
All right. Well, that's great to hear. And we're going to hear some of those voices shortly. I understand a lot of folks have called in and are on the line waiting to pose their questions live. We're going to get to those in just a moment. Before we do, though, I want to play a short piece of tape for you. Yesterday, I had an opportunity to sit down with AARP CEO Dr. Maisha Minter-Jordan to discuss Social Security, and I want to briefly share some of her thoughts with you. Dr. Minter-Jordan, thanks for joining us today. Why is Social Security such a big issue for AARP?
Thanks, Bill. Over the past few months, we have heard from countless older Americans expressing concern and confusion about possible changes to Social Security. Over and over, you told us Social Security is your money that you earned through a lifetime of hard work, and you are counting on AARP to stand up to protect and strengthen it. That's right. We earned our Social Security, and it's AARP's promise to stand up for your Social Security. We're here to listen to you, your concerns, your experiences, and answer your questions.
How has AARP worked to preserve Social Security for older Americans?
For 60 years, AARP has worked with all presidential administrations and Congress to protect and strengthen Social Security. We fought cuts to the cost of living adjustment. We pushed back against using Social Security to deal with budget deficits and opposed efforts to privatize it. This year alone, with your help, we stopped changes to Social Security customer service that would have hurt many older Americans, especially those living in rural areas or without transportation. It's our promise to you. AARP will always stand up to protect and strengthen your Social Security because we earned it through a lifetime of hard work.
The fight for Social Security doesn't end here. What's next?
This year alone, we fought to make sure you can continue to get the information you need from Social Security when and where you need it. We have actively engaged Congress and the administration with the support of millions of older Americans like you who raised their voices with us. That's why it's so important that we continue to hear from you, hear your concerns and your experiences. and that you engage with us so we can raise our voices together to protect and strengthen the Social Security we earned. Together, with our collective voices, I am confident we can continue to make a powerful difference.
Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now it's time to address your questions live with our panel of experts. As a reminder, please press *3 at any time on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member to share your questions live. And if you'd like to listen to this program in Spanish, press *0 on your telephone keypad now.
Si usted desea escuchar en español, presione *0 en su teléfono ahora.
Okay, I'd now like to bring in my AARP colleague, Vice President Reshma Mehta, to help facilitate your calls today. Welcome, Reshma.
Thank you, Bill.
Who do we have first on the line?
Bill, we have Neil from New York. Hi, Neil. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I'm like most people who collect Social Security, would like to know how any changes might affect my direct deposit that I get every month on the 3rd of the month.
All right, let's have Bill Sweeney take that one. Bill?
Well, thanks, Neil. I think the good news is that none of the changes that we've seen at Social Security should have any impact at all on you receiving those benefits on the time of month that you receive them. We're watching this issue very closely, but at the moment, there are no changes to direct deposits, and that's really good news for our members.
Okay, thanks very much. Reshma, let's take another call.
Sure. Our next caller is Lisa from Illinois. Hi, Lisa. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, yeah, I have a question. My husband and I and my son are on Social Security. My son because of disability, and I got an email saying I have a secure message, which I'm quite certain is legitimate because I get those every year to do reporting for my son, and I go to the website and it's down. And if I don't do the reporting, he gets penalized. So how do you know anything about the website coming back or?
Yeah, let's have Bill try to sort that out, Lisa.
Yeah, well, so this is an issue we're hearing a lot about, right? They're doing some tech changes at Social Security, trying to move some parts of the data onto different platforms, but we also know that there is so much news about Social Security, so much worry about Social Security right now, that more and more people are reaching out to Social Security. They're going to the website. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're trying to understand these policy changes. They're calling in, and all of that has a vicious circle, right? It means more people calling. It means the longer wait times. More people hitting the website means the website's more likely to crash. And we've been hearing this from a lot of our members that the website has been really challenged. I think there were a lot of challenges around this, having to upload identity verification documents on the website. We heard a lot of people saying that the website was crashing in the middle of all of that. So that is something that we've been continually raising with Social Security, is the importance of making sure that website is working for people. You know, Social Security tells us, please direct more people to the website, but then the website doesn't work. And so that's a real problem for us. And then it means people are having to call the 1-800 number, or they're having to go into a field office to get help, which is just exacerbating those long lines and those long waits. So we're absolutely raising those sorts of concerns with Social Security, and hopefully they can get that fixed right away.
Okay, thanks very much. Reshma, let's take another call.
Sure. The next caller comes from Wisconsin, Sandra. Hi, Sandra. Go ahead and ask your question. Hey, Sandra. If you can hear me, your line is live and you can go ahead and ask your question.
Sounds like we may have lost her. Let's go to somebody else.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm going to actually turn now to a question that we received from YouTube. Realistically, how much influence does Congress have when DOJ has decimated Social Security staff and closed offices?
Well, I can tell you, Congress has a lot of say over what happens at Social Security. As I mentioned, Social Security's budget comes from the trust fund that all of us have paid into with every single paycheck. But Congress has the power of the purse, and they can restrict how much Social Security can pull out of that trust fund to use on things like customer service, on staffing, and things like that. And so there are really significant oversight powers that Congress has for Social Security. The president's currently nominated somebody to run Social Security, and that has to go through Congress. We're actually expecting them to start voting on that this evening in the U.S. Senate and into next week for that vote. So that's sort of one big one. But also there's committees in both the House and the Senate that have oversight power over Social Security, and we've been calling on them since the beginning of these changes to really hold Social Security accountable, to ask them those tough questions and to roll those back. And I think I honestly do believe that the calls, the emails that so many of our members drove into Congress, that so many others called and wrote in and sent their emails. I know that Congress was engaged, that they were reaching out behind the scenes to Social Security, and I think that was actually what made the difference, was getting Congress involved in telling Social Security to stop this really ill-advised new policy change. And we were, again, thankful to see that they did that on April the 11th.
Okay. Reshma, who's our next caller?
Sure. Next up, we have Larry from Texas. Hey, Larry, go ahead and ask your question.
Yes. I was just wanting to know, what can members and maybe AARP really force legislation, Congress, and that to resolve these issues that I hear regarding the trust fund, and that in maybe 8-10 years, the trust fund may be out of money and then our benefits will be cut. I just feel like the government seems to be gaslighting people, saying, well, nothing's going to happen to Social Security, and they just seem to be putting it off and maybe just going to wait until right before the trust fund runs out of money before anything happens.
Bill?
Larry, that's a great question, and that is the question. That is the question that we've been asking Congress for a long time now. The sort of long-term fiscal challenges for Social Security aren't anything new. This is, the sort of something that we've been seeing and watching for years now. The Social Security Trustees Report is actually going to come out in the next couple of months here, and that will tell us where we are with Social Security's finances for the long term. The good news is that Social Security can pay 100% of their benefits until about 2035 at the moment. And after that, it can pay 83% of the benefits for decades and decades after that. So it's 17% is a big shortfall, but it's not the end of the world. Social Security doesn't need to be thrown out and rebuilt from scratch. It's something that Congress needs to fix, but it's an absolutely fixable problem. And the longer Congress waits, the worse their options are. So we've been really pushing Congress hard. I know that, again, thousands, millions of our members have been reaching out over the years, urging Congress to get on this, to get focused on this. But as you pointed out in your call, Larry, Congress doesn't usually focus on things till the very last minute. And so we are continuing to just bring that pressure. But at the end of the day, it'll be up to them when they want to focus on it. I always remind people that the last time Congress dealt with Social Security was 1983. And they did it a month before Social Security's insolvency date. So, I hope they do better than a month before, but I wouldn't count on them doing it 10 years in advance. So.
All right.
It's also going to take presidential leadership, which is
That's
really
right.
important in this process.
That's right, John. Yeah.
Okay. Reshma, let's take another question.
Sure. The next question comes to us from Peter in Colorado. Hey, Peter, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. Well, thank you. My question is that me and my wife pay income tax on our Social Security, 80%. And during the campaign, President Trump said that he was going to eliminate that tax. Has that been introduced into Congress? And has AARP done anything to kind of pursue that?
That's a great question. Bill?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So that's something that we're looking at right now, actually. There's some legislation moving in Congress that would change some of the tax policies at the federal level, and this is definitely in the mix. AARP is really engaged in this fight. I don't have anything to announce today, but we are moving apace and really looking at some different proposals, making sure that they protect the Social Security Trust Fund, but also that we can get some tax relief to folks who need it.
Okay, very good. Reshma, let's take another call.
Sure. Our next call comes from Denise in California. Hi, Denise. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. Hello. My question is, does AARP have lobbyists working for us in Congress? Because it seems like lobbyists are the ones that have the power. I've gone to some protests, against cuts to Social Security in my town, but I just think we need more power than that to help safeguard our benefits.
Sure. Well, I'm gonna pass you over to Bill Sweeney, who's an expert on that subject as a lobbyist for Social Security. Bill, can you talk about our advocacy organization, maybe both at the national level and the state level?
Well, Denise, I'm happy to say that I'm your lobbyist, and I have a great team. I think one of the coolest things about me working at AARP for me is that I get to be a lobbyist for people just like you, for people all over this country who want to make sure that their benefits are protected, the benefits they paid into. And I got to say, there's a lot of lobbyists in Washington. Most of them don't fight for regular folks. They fight for big companies or billionaires to get them even richer. And my job is to fight for my job and my team and the folks here at AARP, all of us who work on advocacy, are fighting for people just like you. They're fighting for our members and for older adults everywhere. And I think it's just it is so important to have people's voices be heard in Washington, whether it's directly through sending in emails or making phone calls, or having lobbyists go in and have those meetings with members of Congress. So it's something we're doing every day, and I appreciate you calling in and asking that question.
So AARP members do have a representative here in the halls of power in Congress, also in state legislatures?
That's right, and state legislatures, increasingly now in city halls across the country. We have AARP teams that fan out all over the country, supported by an incredible team of volunteers who raise your voice, who make sure that your interests are heard, and that Congress, that state legislatures, that governors, city councils, and mayors are listening to the concerns that older Americans have, and it's incredible how powerful our voices are when we stand together on these issues.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for all those questions. We're going to take more live questions in just a moment, but before we do, let's review how AARP is fighting for you on Social Security right now. John Hishta, in 2025, Social Security marks its 90th anniversary. Has the program lived up to its promise for Americans?
It sure has, Bill. In the 90 years, Social Security hasn't missed a payment. It has done what it is meant to do, help people retire with dignity after a lifetime of hard work. But I'll tell you, Washington can't afford to play games with this. AARP's priority is to ensure that older Americans can live independently with access to the services they rely on every day. This 90th anniversary isn't just a celebration, it's a reminder. Right now, Social Security is doing what it was built to do, and it's up to us to make sure it's there for the next 90 years as well.
All right. What is AARP planning to do to recognize this major milestone?
Well, as you know, Bill, Social Security actually turns 90 on August the 14th. And for the 90 days leading up to the big day, AARP will raise up the importance of Social Security to all Americans. We'll launch a coast-to-coast effort from May through August to emphasize why Social Security matters now more than ever. We'll host listening sessions and other events to bring people together and hear directly from them. And we'll invite members of Congress to join us. We'll shine a bright light on the impact Social Security has made on people's lives across the country and about how we all earned it through hard work and every paycheck. At AARP, we're laser focused on making sure Social Security remains strong today and lasts at least another 90 years, and we'll use every moment of the next 90 days to make that case.
All right. What does AARP want lawmakers to know about Social Security and the views of their members?
We want them to understand one thing loud and clear. Social Security is not just a budget line item. It's a lifeline. This is money Americans have earned every paycheck, every year over a lifetime of work. They're not asking for favors. They're expecting what they were promised. So when talk starts up about changing access to services, raising the retirement age, or using Social Security as a bargaining chip, AARP is going to push back. We also want the Social Security Administration to fix what's broken, as Bill has so eloquently put. It shouldn't take hours on the phone or multiple trips to a Social Security office an hour away to get an answer. Social Security customer service has to work better for the people who earned it and count on it. Bottom line, AARP is here to make sure lawmakers know that protecting Social Security isn't just good policy, it's good politics. Because voters across this country, from conservatives to liberals, expect them to stand up and defend it.
All right. As we heard earlier, AARP is often asking its members to contact Congress on Social Security and a whole host of other issues. Do members of Congress care about public feedback? Do all the calls and emails and local town hall comments matter to them?
Oh, they sure do, Bill. And when Americans speak up, Washington listens, and we've seen it in action. Bill mentioned the example a little bit earlier when Social Security Administration planned to require most people to verify their identity in person or online last month, effectively ending phone applications for payments. That would have been a nightmare for older folks, especially those in rural areas or with mobility issues. We fought back. We mobilized our members and activists, and the response was incredible. Over 3 million actions were taken, including phone calls, petitions, and sharing their stories, with more than 2 million emails going to Congress directly. So it worked. The Social Security Administration delayed the policy and ultimately reversed it, allowing phone applications to continue. This proves that when we raise our voices together, we can protect the Social Security we've earned. So yes, your calls, your emails, your town hall comments do matter. They make a difference.
So what is the best way for AARP members to share their concerns and frustrations?
Well, let me just say, if you're frustrated, you're not alone, and you're not powerless either. One voice might be easy to ignore, but when millions speak up, Congress and the Social Security Administration pay attention. That's why it's so important to show up to events like this. Town halls matter. When your member of Congress hosts one, be there. Ask the tough questions. Share your story. If you've got a local office, stop by. Make a phone call. Write an email. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just tell them what's not working and why Social Security matters to you and your family. And right now, if you want, you can press 1 on your telephone keypad if you're ready to speak up for Social Security, to add your name and pledge to be part of this fight and this team.
All right. Thanks so much, John. And again, if you wish to add your name and pledge to be part of this fight, press 1 on your telephone keypad right now. And remember, if you'd like to ask a question to one of our experts, press *3 on your telephone keypad. We are going to be taking more live calls in just a moment, but let me turn back to our experts. Steve Richardson, you worked at the Social Security Administration for nearly 40 years. What are some of the common myths that you've heard about Social Security?
Well, the first one, we had that gentleman ask that question just a few moments ago, and that's the will it run out of money question. And it was answered very clearly, but let's just go over it again. What indicates the economic health of the Social Security trust funds? It is the trustees report. It is the annual trustees report. And last year's trustees report, as pointed out, we've got another one coming up here shortly. Last year's indicated that by 2035, only 83% of benefits will be payable at that time. And it's important to point out, just to expand on that a bit, as was said, is that benefits don't go to zero. It's a pay-as-you-go system where workers of today pay into the system. But this is obviously intolerable, and people won't stand for a reduction of that time come around 2035. So what we would always argue as a public relations practitioner when posed with this question, working directly for the agency, was we would always urge people to what do? You essentially take a history lesson, and you look at what happened in the 1983 amendments. And it was pointed out earlier that, this is the last time that we had seen any sort of sweeping reform to the Social Security program. So look at the amendments as part of that 1983 Social Security law that changed and brought us to where we are today. Another one would be fraud and waste, right? People think that right from the get-go they would tend to paint a program like this with a broad stroke and say that it's riddled with fraud and abuse. But the agency has always had a very robust and a strong presence with their Office of the Inspector General, conducting on-site reviews and making recommendations to the administration how we can better bolster our security and detecting fraud and acting on it and prosecuting when necessary. And it's a two-sided argument as well. In that the big thing about fraud and waste, it's up to all of us. The agency has always had this strong, robust anti-fraud campaign, and they work very hard to maintain it. But it's us too, right? It's us as citizens. If we see something, say something. If you feel as if somebody is calling you and it's fraudulent, somebody's making themselves out to be a Social Security employee, and they're clearly not, because they're asking you your name and your date of birth and your Social Security number. Well, Social Security employees know your name. They know your Social Security number. They know your date of birth. So you can report this fraud to SSA's Office of the Inspector General as well. And the third, of course, is it's an entitlement program. It's a Ponzi scheme. And to close in on that, it's important that you take a history lesson with this program. You really do. I've learned that in my 40 years of working there, and that if you go back to the 30s, this is a pay-as-you-go system, right? 85% of the dollar coming in goes back out to beneficiaries. It's the workers. It's the working population that are really the key factors to a pay-as-you-go retirement system. So as money comes in, if additional funds are being collected on top of what goes out, they're held in trust and by law, invested by law. But again, it's this pay-as-you-go. Some people would call it a Ponzi system. It's not. It's really an inaccurate description of what the program is and what it has always been.
All right, Steve, thanks so much for that. Bill Sweeney, let me come back to you. According to a recent Gallup poll, worry about the U.S. economy and healthcare and Social Security has really surged. What do you say to someone considering making changes to their retirement plans? Should the volatility of the last few months cause them to reconsider when they claim Social Security?
Well, let me just start by saying I'm not a financial planner, and you should seek professional advice when making these financial decisions. But having said that, I would be concerned if people are making changes to their Social Security plans based on what they're seeing in the news or anything other than facts, right? When to claim Social Security retirement benefits is an incredibly important decision. It basically is one that you can't take back. If you take it back, you have to pay back all the money you got, which is unrealistic for most people. So when you claim is really, really important, and it's a decision you should make very carefully based on your financial situation, based on your age and your family situation, but really should be something that you make very carefully and not based on what you're hearing in the news or what you're worried about at the moment. About 40% of older Americans rely on Social Security for the majority of their retirement income, and about 1 in 6 rely on it for essentially all of their income. And you should know that the longer you wait to collect Social Security, it's usually better, right? Retiring early means that your monthly benefit will be reduced for as long as you live, while waiting to claim as long as you can, even past your full retirement age, can increase your monthly benefit for the rest of your life. So these are important things for people to understand as you make these really tough, again, personal decisions. But I want to be clear, just like Steve said, Social Security isn't going broke. You'll see news stories, Social Security is going broke. It's not true. It's not true. Social Security can pay out 100% of its promised benefits until at least 2035. And after that, without any changes, it can still pay 83% of promised benefits. But just like in 1983, whoever the Congress is in 2035, the thing they care about almost more than anything else is their own jobs. And it's hard to imagine any scenario where Congress would allow massive cuts like that to go into effect. So I feel pretty confident that Congress will fix Social Security before it runs out, but we need to keep bringing that pressure. But that should absolutely not, again, in my view, should not change what people decide based on when they're going to retire or when they're going to claim their benefits.
Okay. Now, during a recent Tele-Town Hall conversation like today's, listeners told us they were worried Social Security would be taken away or maybe privatized. Are these real possibilities, and what prompts these concerns?
Well, look, I don't think there is a real possibility that Social Security will be privatized anytime soon. We had that fight about a couple decades ago. AARP took that fight to Congress. We won handily. And honestly, I have not seen any proposals in Congress since then to seriously consider privatizing Social Security benefits or moving things into private accounts or things like that. And frankly, I think we're living through a moment right now where there's a lot of volatility in the stock market. And this is the reason why private accounts for Social Security are not a good idea. That's the reason that AARP fought against that is the stock market goes up and up and up, and that seems like, wow, why don't we just put this money into the stock market? And then the stock market goes down, and people say, I'm sure glad Social Security is not in the stock market.
Right.
So I think that we have had a really good track record of holding those sorts of proposals away. And I got to be honest as well, to the contrary, we're really pleased that President Trump has made his promise so clear to protect Social Security, to not cut one penny from the program. That's been very prominent during his campaign and since he's been elected and since he's taken office. So rest assured, no matter what changes Congress might consider, AARP will be there to ensure that your needs are prominent in the discussion and that we're not going to be moving to some kind of a private system for Social Security, but protecting Social Security for, again, at least the next 90 years.
All right. Thanks, Bill, and thanks to all our experts. It's now time to address more of your live questions with our experts. As a reminder, press *3 at any time on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member to share your question live. Reshma, who do we have on the line now?
Sure. Thanks, Bill. The first question comes to us from Mark in the state of Maryland. Hey, Mark, are you there? Can you ask your question?
Yeah, hi. Thank you. I recently applied to collect Social Security benefits effective April, meaning I should be getting my first payment in May this month. But my question is, should I be getting a letter from Social Security that, confirms all this?
Maybe I can ask Steve, who worked for the Social Security Administration for many years, to tackle that one. Steve?
Sure, absolutely. You will most definitely receive via surface mail an award notice from Social Security telling you exactly what your amount is and when the benefits will begin based on your date of birth throughout the month. That dictates the second, third, or fourth Wednesday of the month that the check is actually paid. And you are correct. If your date of entitlement when you want benefits to begin is April, your first check will come in May. If you haven't received this notice yet, we would recommend that you do contact the 800 number for Social Security at 772-1213 to be certain that your case has been processed, adequately and timely, and that you shouldn't have any problems or interruptions going forward.
Okay. Thanks very much. Reshma, let's take another call.
All right. The next question actually comes to us from Facebook from Anush, and he has a kind of a two-part question. So first is, do I need an appointment to see someone in the Social Security office, or can I just walk in? And part two is, can I go to any Social Security office, or do I need to go to one determined by where I live?
Steve, do you want to tackle that one?
Sure. 1994, Social Security launches the website, right? This thing's been around, the proliferation of the internet, and it hit us all back then. So they launch a website, and, 1990, about maybe 15, 16 years later, a retirement application is launched where people can file online, and you can do all this. But look, how many times do you file for retirement in life? I would often say this when I would give a presentation. I'd say, the agency would always want us to move people towards, what they can do on the internet. And I would always say, unless you're 100% comfortable with, doing it that way, go ahead. But how many times do you actually file for retirement in life? normally just one time. So if you do want to exercise the option of contacting your local Social Security office through the 800 number, making an in-person appointment or telephone appointment, you can freely do that, because retirement, requires a lot of questions, a lot of understanding. This is a huge decision to make regarding when you want to launch these things. It's really important to do so. So you have that option. And number two, you also have the option of walking into a Social Security office. They go by a number system. You'll have to take a number and have a seat. If you do walk into a place, they would, if they give you an indication you may be there a long time, you can make an appointment going forward at a future time. And yes, you can go to any Social Security office. If you're traveling, for example, or if you live 6 months in one part of the country, 6 months in another part of the country, you can go to any Social Security office for service.
Very good. Reshma, let's take another call.
Sure. Our next caller comes to us from Illinois. Vicky from Michigan. My apologies. Hey, Vicky, can you ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I'm calling, although I'm a senior as well, calling on behalf of my aunt who is 80 years old. She recently had to have a leg amputated, which after she was able, we had to move her into a more accountable and wheelchair accessible environment. In talking with Social Security, they're requiring her or asking her to come into the office because she has to change her address. Are there other options for her? Because we're having a challenge right now with that.
All right, great question. Steve, can you handle that one?
Yeah, sure. There's a couple of things going on here. When I would hear things like this, Social Security has what's called a representative payee program. If there's a family member who's wishing to take over, if your aunt, for example, is unable to care for their needs financially, you can certainly file to become a representative, a legal representative payee, and you would do this by contacting the agency directly. And you could conduct all this business yourself. And the second is, of course, I'm going to point it out, you can do these things. You can do an address change online. You can freely do that. If your aunt is comfortable with this, by creating a My Social Security account, and you can change that address online. But I would recommend contacting the agency, regarding the address change. You do want to get that changed. Their restrictions are more right now in terms of face-to-face interviews, are more geared towards applying for cash benefits and changing your direct deposit. But I would seriously consider looking into filing to become a representative, a legal representative payee, as Social Security doesn't recognize a power of attorney designation. They have their own power of attorney designation, and it's called the representative payee. So you may want to look at that on their website, or contact the local office for more detail. Okay, Bill, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Vicky, I want to just add one other thing, which is if you don't get if you're running into trouble with Social Security, in a case like yours, and I'm so sorry to hear about your aunt. I think you might also consider, if you can't get resolution with this and it's impossible to get her into the agency, to call your member of Congress. If you go on Google and Google your member of Congress's name, they have an office in their district, probably near your town, where you can call, and they have somebody on staff who works full time to help people just like you with problems with Social Security. And this is the kind of thing that's a little different than usual, that I would absolutely call them and see if they can't give you some help to try to solve this with Social Security too.
Okay, thanks very much. Reshma, let's take another question.
Sure, we have a question from YouTube from Richard Meyer. How do I reassure people that are just beginning their work career that Social Security is something they can look forward to and that their contributions are worthwhile?
Steve, this is something you were addressing just a moment ago. Do you want to follow up with Richard?
Yeah, I think, the trustees report, and where are we going in the future? Where are we going? And again, it's an emphasis on how do you answer the question more often than not in programs like this? How do you answer where are we going in the future? And you need to have an understanding of where we've been and what the past has brought us, and what will it take to bolster Social Security going forward. And by looking plainly and squarely at what happened back in 1983 with what? An increase in the FICA tax rate, a decrease in benefits to students of disabled surviving parents, taxing Social Security income, raising the retirement age These are just a few of the things that happened back in 1983. So getting your hands around that and having a better understanding of how things will likely go forward, it will sort of ground you. It should ground you to see that, look, it happened in the past. It was done effectively. We should be able to do it going forward.
Okay, very good. And remember, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. We will take more of your calls in just a moment. But for now, let's turn back to our experts. Bill Sweeney, we've discussed some of the changes so far this year to Social Security. Are more expected, and what is AARP tracking right now?
Well, look, not expecting more, but we weren't expecting the one that we saw earlier this year either. So, look, the truth is we are 100% focused on this all the time. We've got a team of people who follow everything that happens at Social Security with eagle eyes, and we are really making sure that we are staying on top of this, making sure that any changes that do happen are things that make sense for older adults, and that if they don't make sense, we will be on top of it. As John mentioned, August 14th is Social Security's 90th anniversary, and we're really looking forward to ringing in that anniversary, celebrating Social Security all over the country. Really, and I think using that opportunity to reach out to members of Congress, of both parties, and making sure that they're hearing about how important Social Security is to all of you, and that they are committed to be part of the effort to save the program and to make sure that it is solvent for another 90 years.
Okay. Bill, we've heard a lot in the news about staff reductions and office closures at the Social Security Administration. Are those things hindering the agency's ability to help customers? And what is the risk of payment errors or payment delays?
Well, look, as I mentioned earlier, Social Security was already at a 50-year low when it comes to staffing, and that's before announcements that they were going to reduce staff by 7,000 employees from about 57,000 down to about 50,000. They've also announced the closure of 6 regional offices and some hearing spaces around the country. Those regional offices weren't really customer-facing. Those were more back-end support. So we don't really know fully what the implications will be for front-end support. We have heard that Social Security, they're telling us that they're moving some of those staff into frontline mission-critical roles at field offices or on the phones. But we really don't know how that's all going to play out until it plays out. Based on that, I don't think that any of those changes would have any risk of payment errors or delays, but obviously that's something that we're watching very, very closely, and we'd be ready to, and we are ready to act if that does happen, to make sure that those get back on track right away.
Okay. Steve, let me turn back to you. A representative from the Department of Government Efficiency recently said there are extreme levels of fraud within the Social Security Administration. What does Social Security do to stop fraud, and does it work?
Well, again, we had touched on this just a few moments ago, that the Social Security's Office of the Inspector General, that is their anti-fraud arm, if you will. And they have a robust and a very strong presence within the agency. In all my years of working there, they were extremely visual. And, their job is to detect fraud, right? There's 2 parts to fraud. Obviously, we all play a part. If we see it, we smell it, we feel it, we know it. It usually is. Make the call, contact the Office of the Inspector General, and report any kind of fraud that may come about. But what the OIG, their goals were very extensive. They would conduct extensive independent, audits of all programs within the Social Security Administration, and conduct extensive investigations of all parts, of all payments, all programs, being paid out, not just computations, but entitlements and going forward. And, the whole fact would be that, they search for and detect weaknesses within the system. That's their sole source of existence. And then they provide recommendations to the administration going forward. And this is how they've always, sort of run their show. And they've always had a very, very strong presence and a very robust program.
Okay. Let me bore into that a little bit. What do the new anti-fraud checks mean for people applying for Social Security? What is needed if you're asked to prove your identity? Steve.
Well, yeah, sure. As far as the anti-fraud things, having worked here for 40 years, I kind of see, and I'm sure many of us have worked for agencies or organizations for a long time. You get sort of recycled things, recycled ideas. This is kind of up that alley. Look, when you call the Social Security office for the 40 years I worked there was always a anti-fraud screening process that took place. You had to identify with very specific information of who you were calling, and it had to be consistent with the records that already existed within the Social Security databases. So anti-fraud checks were always, in terms of what a person, depending upon what a person wanted to do. It's bolstered up a little bit more. Everything I'm understanding, everything I'm reading about it, is that they're going to likely ask additional questions, take it to another level, is the indication I'm getting from it, the current anti-fraud checks. The checks themselves are the questions that are going to be asked by the Social Security employee of the member of the public calling up, just to make sure they are, who they are.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Steve. John Hishta, let me bring you back into the conversation. If people want to receive updates or join the fight to protect Social Security, how can they do that?
Well, there's a few ways to learn more about it and to join the fight to protect Social Security, Bill. Right now, you can press 1 on your telephone keypad if you're ready to speak up for Social Security to add your name and pledge to be part of this fight today. You can sign up for our email alerts at aarp.org/getinvolved. That's aarp.org/getinvolved. Or if you're on social media, find AARP Advocates on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And of course, check out our Protect Social Security website at aarp.org/protect Social Security.
All right, John, that's great. Thanks so much. And again, if you wish to add your name and pledge to be part of this fight, press 1 on your telephone keypad right now. Let's go back to the phone lines for some more questions with our panel of experts. Press star 3 at any time on your telephone keypad to be connected with an AARP staff member to share your questions live. Reshma, who do we have on now?
Sure, Bill. We have Carlos from Oregon who's been patiently waiting. Hey, Carlos, are you there? And can you ask your question?
Yes, thank you for taking my question. First, I appreciate all the AARP is doing and working very, very hard to it. I'm not as optimistic as other people are, but even though Congress is going to vote and they say they're going to save it, I don't trust certainly Republicans to support it simply because they're going to do what Trump tells them. Is there any way that we can get assurances that Republicans particularly, and I know we're not supposed to be, partisan, is there any way that we can assure our volunteers as well as our members of Social Security that votes are not going to be against us? And also, the last thing is, what damage has DOGE done to Social Security in your opinion? Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Carlos. John Hishta, do you want to take the first part of that question?
Sure. I would say that we have to consistently hold our elected leaders, both members of Congress and the Senate and the President's feet to the fire and ask them to continue to publicly promise to preserve and protect Social Security. And the good news is, from our perspective, they are doing that now. You hear the same consistent message from leaders of both parties that they want to preserve and protect Social Security. I would remind everybody what my colleague Bill said a little bit earlier. The number one job that these guys consider more than anything else is their own reelection. And they know that going down a path of doing any harm in this case would be very, very damaging to their livelihood from a political perspective. And so we'll continue to hold their feet to the fire. We'll continue to make sure that we bring to bear the over 38 million members who have a voice in this debate, and we'll make sure that it's preserved for future generations.
Okay, thanks so much, John. Reshma, who do we have next on the line?
Sure. Next is actually a question from Facebook from Caden Foster, and they ask, will Social Security notify us if our payment is delayed or adjusted?
Bill Sweeney?
Yes, I mean, if there's ever some reason that there'd be and I'm struggling to think of one, but if there's a reason why a payment would be adjusted or modified or something, Social Security would reach out to you, and they would do that through the mail, the U.S. mail. If you have a Social Security, my SSA account, they might send you something in the email as well to let you know to go log into Social Security and get that notice. They will not send you a note in an email directly. They won't call you on the phone and tell you that you have to do that. And that's really a hallmark, a lot of the fraud that we see, where people get a call that says, I'm calling from Social Security, we're going to cut your benefits unless you do X, Y, or Z. Never believe that. It's never going to be Social Security calling you on the phone and asking for that information. Or a text, or Facebook, or anything else. It's going to come to you in the mail at your house.
All right, very good. Let's take another question.
Sure. We have a question also from Facebook from Brenda Jackson, and she asks, how do we find out who our state liaison is for AARP on a state level?
Bill Sweeney?
Well, that's great. If you, we are really lucky at AARP. We have state offices in every state. In many states, we have multiple offices around the state. So the best way is to just Google AARP and your state, the name of your state, and that will likely bring up the page for our AARP state offices.
Yeah, every state office has its own web page with all kinds of news and local information and contact information on there. So check that out. Let's take another question.
Sure. One more question from online, from Carolyn. What do you think about raising the cap on the Social Security wage base as a way to bolster the fund? Also, thank you for making it so easy to contact my congressperson.
All right. Bill Sweeney?
Well, thanks. That is something that we're certainly focused on. I know that is one of the options. We've been talking about, as Congress gets closer to that date in 2035, they're going to be looking at some different options to raise revenues, to look at benefits and some other things. And so this issue of raising the cap on how much people pay in taxes into Social Security is certainly one that is on the table. It has been getting a lot of attention, and it is definitely something that Congress is considering as part of a larger package of things to do that would keep Social Security solvent for the long term.
Okay, very good. Reshma, who's next?
Sure. Our next caller comes to us from Georgia. It's Valerie from Georgia. Valerie, can you ask your question?
Yes, thank you. And hello, everyone, and thank you for all this valuable information. The question that I have is, how do you become a volunteer with AARP in advocating, protecting Social Security? That might have been covered in the Press One Pledge and the website, but maybe more specific on how to become a volunteer.
Well, thank you. And Valerie, we'd love to have your help with this and the help of everybody who's calling. The best thing you can do is go to aarp.org/states. Then you can actually get a list of all the information about what's happening in your state. Or you can call 1-888-687-2277.
And as we said earlier, you can also press 1 on your telephone keypad to add your name and pledge to be part of our Social Security fight. All right, well, let's take another question.
Sure. And the next question is coming from Francis in Texas. Hi, Francis. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to ask the question. I want to know if you can tell me, or someone can tell me, in the discussions with our lawmakers on the new policy changes, are there any, I guess, differences between those who are, in those changes, between those who are currently receiving Social Security or soon to be, I heard one caller is starting, and those who have yet? And I ask that because with limited opportunities to change retirement planning at this stage. So are there talks about any differences, or just across the board of the changes that policy changes are looking to make?
Well, the big change that they were looking to make, right, was on was around identity verification, and that was for anybody who might need Social Security. And I think the one thing I always remind folks about is that when you reach out to Social Security, it's often in the most stressful, some of the most difficult times in your life when you're trying to figure out when you're going to retire. As Steve mentioned, right? That's not something you do more than once usually. That's a big decision and a big decision that people make. You reach out to Social Security when your spouse has passed away or when a loved one has died. And those are all very stressful moments that require you to get help. And so one of the things that we were really worried about with these policy changes was that, you don't know when you're going to need to use Social Security. And when you do, you don't have days and weeks to spend trying to figure out transportation to a field office to prove who you are. You need to get the help you need right away when you need it. And so we're really glad that they backtracked on that policy change, and that you can now get those questions answered over the phone. But it is really important to recognize that all of us pay into Social Security, and you might need it at any time. Or if you've become disabled, you get hurt, right? And you need to claim disability. Those are all things that, you need it when you need it. You don't need it 3 weeks later or after a long process of jumping through hoops or unwinding some red tape. So thanks for calling, and we're definitely going to keep focused on making sure you can get that service you need right when you need it.
Okay, thanks, Bill, and thanks to our entire panel of experts today for sharing your valuable insights and answering all these great questions. We really appreciate each of you contributing to this important conversation. And a special thanks to you, our AARP members, volunteers, and listeners for participating in this discussion today. AARP, a nonprofit, nonpartisan membership organization, has been working to promote the health and well-being of older Americans for more than 60 years. All of the resources referenced today, including a recording of today's Q&A event, can be found at aarp.org/conversations starting tomorrow, May 2nd. Thank you and have a good day. This concludes our call.